Hi, my name is Vinay, and today we are going to learn how to program in Java using Java swings and the swing components. So first, to code in Java swings we need an IDE. So you can either use NetBeans or Eclipse as per your convenience. So I am using NetBeans IDE version 7.4. So this is how it looks. Now first we have to create a new project. So select Java application, click on next. You can give a project name such as swings. So our project is created. You can just close down the extra tabs. Alright. So the first thing that we are going to learn today is how to make a GUI using Java swings. So anything that you build or make in swings is put onto a frame called a Java frame. In swings we call it as JFrame. So we're gonna build a simple frame. So click on your package called swings, right click, new Java class, type in my frame. Alright. Now we need to define the constructor first. So that is my frame, open and close parentheses, open your curly braces. Then you can type in int h is equal to 300, int w is equal to 500. Say so we are going to use the class JFrame and an object called JFM. So JFM is the object of JFrame. JFrame is a class in Java swings. So here we can fix the import. That is, we need to import the package called javax.swing.jframe. So we have defined two variables, one is h and the other one is w. H is 300 pixels and w, which is the width, is 500 pixels. So now we're gonna create a complete object of JFrame, that is JFM is equal to new JFrame. Now we can use this object to implement its different methods, the methods of JFrame. So one of the methods is set size. It sets the size of the frame, and we can pass in the parameters w and h, which is the width and the height of the frame. The second method that we are going to use is the set visible method. It takes a boolean argument, that is whether true or whether false. So we are giving here true so that the frame is visible. So this is a frame, a general frame. If you want, you can give a name to your frame such as my first frame. Right click and run it. Oops. So we don't have the main method. So we'll define the main method, which is public void public static void main string args. Then we can call the constructor myFrame, new myFrame, by making an object of our class myFrame, and now we can run the file. So here it is. This is our first frame. So this is a simple frame with the caption my first name as the frame title. The width is 500 pixels and the height is 300 pixels. Now the next thing that we are going to do is use a JButton class from the Swings package. So a JButton is a button wherein you can put in a button onto your frame. So we're gonna define the JButton. So JButton, let's name it JB, and we can import this javax.swing.jbutton class, and we're gonna create button object. JB is equal to new JButton, and name the button as your full name. Now we have created a button. Next is we got to add this button onto the frame. So we're going to use the JFrame object dot the function add, and this takes a parameter of JButton. So we are adding JButton onto the JFrame. Now let us run this. Oh, there's an error. Okay, so we run it again. So there we have a button. So this is our frame and this is our button with the label in between. So now since we know how to use or how to create a JFrame, that is our own frame, and how to put a button on it, we can now proceed to test our button. So for that you need a Java file called as buttontester.java, which is there in your folder. You can just copy that file into your project folder, and you can open it in NetBeans or Eclipse. So this is how the file looks. So I have some pre-coded lines in there wherein our default frame has been defined as myFrame. So myFrame is the object of JFrame, and we have a button called button, which is an object of JButton. So this is the width and the height of our frame. The title of our frame is button tester. The default close operation is exit on close. Here we are using something new, which is a layout. So this is a flow layout wherein every other component that we keep on adding successively gets added to the previous component. So for example, if we have button 1 and button 2, so if we add button 1 first, so the first button will be added onto the frame, and if we add the second button, then the second button will be added following the button 1. Here is our button button is named as click me, and the button is also added to the frame. Now the whole and sole purpose of the button tester.java is to create two inner classes and test our buttons. So what we are going to do in this program is create two inner classes, that is, those are classes within a class and not external classes. So we are going to create two of them, and we are going to increase and decrease the size of a frame using inner classes on the click of each button. So we're gonna define one more button. So let name this button as button 1, and you can have another object called button 2. So now we need to create the object of button 2. So J button, oops, so J button button 2 is equal to new J button, and we can name this as button 1 since we changed the name. And name this as bigger, because we are going to increase the size of the frame. And we can add this button to the frame, that is my frame dot add, and pass on the parameter as button 2. Perfect. We can name this button as smaller. Now let us see how our button looks like. Okay, so here we are facing an exception because we are using listeners. So we can just comment this part of the code and see how our frame looks. So here it is. So there are two buttons, bigger and smaller. On the click of the buttons there is nothing happening. So let us just code something and make the buttons do something. So we're gonna implement the listeners, that is, whenever you click a button, the listener listens to the click of the button and it performs an action. So the action listener class helps us define a listener. So the action listener is equal to new click listener, and button 1 dot add action listener. So the listener 1 has been added to button 1. We can define another listener, which is action listener 2 is equal to new click listener, and add this to button 2. Add action listener and pass listener 2 as the parameter. Oh, I'm bad with spellings. Anyways, so we have two listeners now, listener 1 and listener 2. Now let us go and create the two inner classes. So the first class, public class get bigger, or just say bigger, and we're gonna define a method called as get bigger. In this, what we have to do is, first we have to get the dimensions of the frame, that is the height and width of the frame, and then we're gonna multiply it by 2, that is double the size of the frame. So let's see how we can do that. So we can first define the height and width variables, and then pass, get the values from the frame, that is the object is my frame dot get value, or we can say get height. There's this. Okay, so and width will be my frame dot get width. So now in the variable h we have the height of the frame, and in variable w we have the width of the frame. Now we are going to set the size of the frame the double. I mean, we have to first multiply the height and the width, that is h in w, by 2, and then set the size of the frame to double. So let's see how we can do that. So my frame dot set size, which take two parameters, the width and the height. So w into 2 comma h into 2. So this will set the size of the frame 2 times the original size. Next we have to define another class called as public class smaller, and in this we can define the method public void get smaller. And we just have to copy paste everything, and instead of multiply we have to divide the width and the height, so that it decreases by half, that is the size of the frame decreases by half. So our two classes are ready. Save your class and save your Java file. We go back to the constructor wherein we have our two listeners. Okay, so now we need to implement the action perform method of the action listener class in order to make our buttons work. So let's see how we can do that. Now we need to add the listeners to our buttons. So we forgot to implement the listener interface over here for our inner classes. So just make the changes. Public class bigger implements action listener, and the method name will also change to action performed. The same will be for our smaller class, that is implements action listener, and the method will be action performed. And now you can see that we are getting two errors on our class names. So you can press Alt Enter and select implement all abstract methods. This will give you a method called public void action performed. You can just delete that. The action performed takes an argument action event a. So as soon as you write that, the error goes away. So over here, action event AE. Perfect. So now we have our complete two inner classes, and go back to the action listener code line and edit. Instead of click listener, you can have the object of the class name, that is bigger and smaller. So the first listener will be bigger and the other one will be smaller. Alright, so now we can run the class. There we are. So here is a button tester class. On the click of button bigger, the frame gets bigger. On the click of smaller, the frame again gets smaller. So bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller. Just play along. So that was our button class. So next we are going to learn about a button image. That is, we are going to create a button image, and we will be having a smiley face and a frowny face. So when you click on the button, presuming that the button has a smiley face, it will change to a frowny face, and if we click on the frowny face, it will change to a smiley face. So the different part over here is we are going to use action listener again for button, and but this time the listeners will be anonymous inner class. So you require the Java file called button image file, and it's there in your folder. You can just copy it. So if you go through the file carefully, we have JButton and its object JBTM, JLabel, which displays a label, image icon smile, and image icon frown. So the image icons class helps us to store the image. We have a boolean variable called isSmiling, which will assist us as a flag to check the conditions whether the button currently is smiling or frowning. So the frame is created, and the smile and the frown variables already have the image, that is the smiley face PNG and the frowny face PNG, which are the images for smile and frown respectively. So without implementing the listeners, if we go and run the class, it looks like this, and currently nothing happens when we click the button, and that is where we are going to make our buttons work. So initially the isSmiling boolean variable is true, and we can add the listeners to our button. So jbtn dot add action listener, and this is how we create an anonymous inner class. New action listener, open and close parenthesis, open your curly brace, press enter, and there's a semicolon followed at the end. So the function that we are going to use is public void action performed, action event AE, and this is the method of the abstract class action listener. Now we have to first check whether the button is smiling or frowning. So the condition is if is smiling, then we have to change it to a frowny face. So let us see how. If is smiling, then we can set the button icon to frown. So this will have a frowning face on the button, and now we need to make is smiling, that is a boolean variable, to false, because we have a frowny face and not a smiling face. And in the else condition we can write jbtn dot set icon to smile, and set is smiling equal to true. So what is the if else block is doing? If it is smiling, then it is setting the icon on the J button to frown, and the is smiling boolean variable is made false. And if it is not smiling, then the control will go to the else part, and the J button will have a smiley face, and the is smiling boolean variable has been made true. So let's see how does it work. So here is our button image. So smiley, frown, smiley, frowny, smiley, frowny. We have also used a J label, so we can add one more condition. JLab dot set text smiling. We can copy this and replace smiling with frowning, and we can run our file. Oops, seems like something went wrong. Let us fix this. So this should be frowning and this should be smiling. Alright. So as you can see, now it is smiling and it is frowning now, with that label frowning, smiling, frowning. The difference in the image size is because the size of the actual image is actually a bit bigger of the frowning face than the smiling face. So if we have two images of the same size, the button size won't increase. So what we have learned from this program is how to make a button image, and how to use anonymous inner class. Thank you so much for watching this video, and hope you enjoy swings henceforth. Thank you.